Lunges is an exercise that I find a lot of my clients are nervous to perform. And rightfully so, a lot of people will get knee pain with lunges, but it's so important to practice lunges as an exercise because there's lots of situations throughout the day or the week where you actually have to lunge. And if you don't practice a lunge, then when you get into those situations like bending down to tie your shoe, bending down to pick something up off the floor, standing up from the floor, or getting down to the floor. If you don't practice it, those specific activities are going to be so much harder and you're probably going to get more pain. So let's talk about how to do a lunge correctly. My name is Dr. Gretchen. I'm a physical therapist and a multiple sclerosis certified specialist. So the majority of my clients that I work with do have multiple sclerosis or another type of autoimmune or neuromuscular condition. With that said, the tips and technique that I'm going to review with you today applies to anyone who wants to lunge safely. I'm first going to demonstrate how to do a lunge just in the middle of my room, but I have a rollator that you can see in the edge of the video here, and I'm going to demonstrate how to do it with a rollator afterwards, because the truth is you don't have to do this without any support. But without using a rollator or a mobility aid, you can just see my legs and the technique more clearly. As I mentioned a second ago, we lunge a lot throughout the day or throughout the week, depending on what your day-to-day activities look like. But if you imagine that I'm wearing sneakers, if I want to bend down to tie my shoe, then I'll probably do something like this, tie my shoe, and then stand up. Well, guess what? That is a lunge. If you are on the floor for whatever reason, maybe you were playing with your kids or grandkids, or you fell, or I don't know, brushing out a dirt stain. If you want to stand up from the floor, one way that you can stand up is by rolling onto your hands and knees, getting one leg up, and then standing up. That's a lunge. So there's lots of situations like that throughout the day. Unless you are actively avoiding lunges, then you're probably getting some lunges in throughout the day. So the first step is to make sure that you have the right positioning. What you want to do for positioning is first and foremost, make sure that your feet are hip width apart. This is going to be different for everyone. If you have larger hips, you'll have a larger stance. If you have narrow hips, you'll have a more narrow stance. So find your hip bones and make sure that when you look down, your feet and your toes are in alignment with those bones. If you have poor balance and you feel unsteady in this position, or when you're walking, then you might want to go a little bit wider. Opening that stance can make a big difference. From here, you're going to step 1 foot forward. Now, in theory, you would want to make sure that we do this exercise on both sides with one leg forward and then the other leg forward. But if for some reason you have to choose, it would be best to practice this exercise with your stronger leg in front. So I'm going to turn to the side just so you can see, but rest assured my feet are a little bit wider than hip distance apart, and I'm going to put my right leg forward. Not intensely forward, so I don't want you having this huge space, but forward enough where it's a little bit wider than your normal step length. And my feet are still wide. I am not in a tandem stance like this. So from the front, it looks like this. From here, you're going to drop your back knee down towards the floor as your heel comes up. So my knee goes down and that heel comes up. And then I stand up and down and up. So the first step was positioning, but the second thing that we need to think about is where your body weight is, because if your body weight isn't in the right area, that can cause knee pain or hip pain. You want to make sure that as you bend down, the majority of your body weight is in the heel on your front leg. So you want to make sure you don't actually have to lift your ankle up. I'm just demonstrating. You want to make sure your body weight is in the heel. That will protect your knee. So instead of having the majority of your weight in your toes, that can hurt here, shift your body weight back. So to show you from the side, if my body weight is too far forward, I'll look like this and my knee might be coming forward over my toes. But if I want to shift my weight back, it would look like this. Let me go down and up, down and up. So step 2, make sure the body weight is in your heel. Step 3 is to determine how low you should actually be going. If it's been a while since you have done a lunge, you probably don't want to go too low. The lower you go, the harder it's going to be. So if I lunge all the way down or I'm hovering my knee close to the ground, that's going to be much harder than if I just lunge like this. And I just want to point out that this is a lunge, even though I'm barely moving. It's just maybe an inch or so. So many people avoid lunges because they think they have to go all the way down. And if that's stopping you from doing a lunge, you're not going to get the right strengthening for the lunge position. So step 3, see what feels comfortable for you. Hold on to something if you need to, but slowly lower down. And as soon as you feel like it's getting a little tricky or maybe you're losing your balance, stop and then stand up and straighten your legs. And then bend down again and then stand up. Please don't underestimate how integral and effective and important this exercise is. You don't have to have a lot of movement. As I mentioned earlier, we want to make sure that if possible, you're practicing this exercise on both sides. So we just did my right leg forward. I'd want to practice the same thing with my left leg forward. Something to keep in mind is that as your feet are hip width apart, and then you take that step forward, if your step is short, then when you do the lunge, it's going to be a very narrow lunge in the sense that this foot is pretty close to your other foot. It's not going to look like a classic lunge like this. If you do this and it feels okay for you, there's no pain or aches or anything, then that's fine. Ideally, you should step the same distance apart as what you would need to do in a real life situation. For example, if I wanted to bend down to tie my shoe, I'm probably going to step back about this distance and come down to tie my shoe. So I would want to practice a lunge in this distance. So with my left or right foot this far forward, not wider or narrower. Okay, let's quickly review. So your feet are going to be hip distance apart or a little bit wider. You're going to put one foot forward and your body weight is going to be in the heel of your front leg as your back knee lowers down to the ground and then stand back up. Only go as low as you can without pain and while feeling safe and comfortable. As promised, I want to demonstrate using a rollator. You could also do this with the cane or something sturdy. If you're using a rollator, make sure the brakes are on, but you're going to use the same technique. So feet are about shoulder or hip width apart. One foot is forward and the other is back. Weight is on the front heel and bend down. Now, just because you're using a rollator or a cane or a trekking pole does not mean that you should put a lot of weight through it. That's not going to be a good idea because you want your legs to get stronger. So therefore, your legs have to be doing the majority of the work. So I would encourage you to view your mobility aid as just some light support. It's there if you need it. And your weight is still mostly in your legs, not pushing through the rollator. If while you're doing this exercise, you have pain in your knees or your hip, or honestly anywhere, I've got 4 tips for you. The first tip is to do fewer repetitions. So if you're in the lunge position and you're doing maybe 10 of these, or even 5, the more repetitions you do, the more likely that can hurt your joints. So I would encourage you, instead of doing higher repetitions, hold longer. So get into your proper position, weight is in the correct area, lower down and hold. So you'd hold here for maybe 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever you can do. And then as soon as it gets too challenging, you stand up. The hold protects your joint more than repetitions. The second tip, don't go as low. We already talked about this. The lower you go, the harder it is. So if it's too challenging and or too painful, if you don't go as low, that can be really helpful. So just stay higher up. Number 3, we talked about this already, but it's easy to forget. Make sure that the majority of your body weight is in the front heel. If it's in the toes, it's more likely to injure or hurt your front knee. So put your body weight in the front heel as you're bending down and standing up. If you don't know where your body weight is, and as I explain where to put your body weight, it's just kind of throwing you for a loop and you're confused, I want you to think about standing on sand. If you stand on sand that is wet, it will take the imprint of your foot. So picture yourself standing on sand and trying to get the imprint to be in your heel. So you want to be able to see your toes, maybe even the center or arch of your foot and your heel, but you want the heel to be the deepest portion in the sand. That's what you need to do to shift your body weight into your heels. Lastly, if you take those tips and it's still uncomfortable and you're having pain, go see an in-person physical therapist. There might be reasons that you're having pain that you can't see externally. And so a physical therapist can identify why you might be having pain and then suggest specific exercises that might be best for you. I hope you found these tips and this technique helpful. If you are looking for other exercises to help make your daily activities feel easier and less cumbersome, then check out my online MS wellness program, The Missing Link. I'll put a link down in the description where you can learn more about it to see if it's a good fit. Thanks for tuning in.